after Maleficent and Zombieland, my tolerance for bad is kind of.
Critics love Zombieland.
I fucking hate it.
You're on your own island on that one.
I am not alone in that.
You're pretty close. It's like 4 or 5 of you. Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl, and with me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
I go by the nickname Hollywood now.
Hollywood Sean Patrick. Visit us at IHateCritics.net, Everyone's a Critic Podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is CriticsPod. There you can watch the trailers, read Sean's reviews, watch Sean hanging out in Hollywood, whatever you want to do. It's all there. And then we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, etc., etc. Subscribe to the show, rate and review the show. We'll read your reviews on the air. And then Patreon, IHateCritics.net/Patreon. Best way to help support the podcast. There's also a PayPal link and a podcast merch tab if you're interested. Before we get going too far into the Hollywood story, this is going to be if this is your first episode, this is not a normal Everyone's a Critic podcast episode. Sean was out of town all week, so we didn't really get to any new movies. There weren't really any new movies to talk about. And then I did a Kevin Smith thing event that he had. So it's going to be it's a different episode. So either way, whether you like it or hate it, give the next one another shot because this isn't the typical format, especially if you... And then 400 was a different format, too, the one right before this. So we will be back on track next week. Before we get going too far, a longtime listener, Jason Mollett, he once, like 2-3 years ago, sent the three of us a bunch of VHS tapes and VCR, telling us we should do a bonus episode with all these movies. And they've just sat in my cupboard since he gave them to us because I'm lazy and I didn't even try. And Jason's a known troll. I mean, he's been on ESPN for trolling players. He famously, when the Cubs won the World Series, one of the pitchers from the Indians cut his hand on his drone and couldn't pitch as well. So he was just starting to heal going into the World Series, and Jason actually mailed him a drone, and ESPN picked it up and ran it as a story. Well, all those VHS tapes he sent us were blank, and he's been waiting for 3 years for this trolling to pay off. And it never happened. Finally today, or maybe it was yesterday, he sends me a message going, fine, since you're not going to watch them, they're all blank. I just put labels on them. I was trying to troll you guys. Troll fail. So,
yes!
So we won. And then he goes,
love it.
But you can still get Josh. Give him Josh. So even though I told Josh about it, he never responded, and we've kind of moved on, so maybe I'll try it. We'll see how it goes.
He sent them again, Josh. This time they're real. This time...
Which does explain some of the titles. I'm pretty sure one of them was a porno. But we never tried, so we win. Critics 1, Trolls 0. But
if he wanted to troll us, he should have like paid for it to be a Patreon episode that we had to watch these movies, and then all like, oh shit, we can't watch. There's nothing on these tapes.
Yeah, and we're not trolls all the time, but I do remember an early episode that we did back, like the first Christmas episode. We just basically played the audio from the Star Wars Christmas. It's totally illegal, but Disney, I don't think, owned them at the time. So, but anyway, 2 episodes ago, last week, we talked about Sean going to Hollywood. Netflix brought him out to see The Irishman. All expenses more or less paid. We do want to thank all the contributors that did help Sean through the week.
It did, yeah, it really did help.
So thank you for participating in the GoFundMe campaign. But he got to go and see The Irishman and hang out with all sorts of celebrities. So tell us about it.
This was pretty incredible. On October 17th, I got an email from Netflix inviting me to this. And that's like a week later. So a week later, I'm on a plane, flying to Los Angeles. I've been on a plane in 20 years, so that was a weird experience. Landed in Los Angeles at 2:30 in the afternoon. And again, at certain point, somebody told me that at first I thought it was just going to be a typical, like a critic screening in a screening room with just a few BFCA people. Fine, cool, all right, that's fine with me because you're flying me in anyway. I don't care how I see the movie. Cool. Then I look at the itinerary and it says the Chinese theater is but it said the TCL Chinese theater. And I've not up on things out there, so I always thought of it as Mann's Chinese theater. So I'm telling people about this, and I actually told a couple of people, man, while I'm there, I hope I get to see Mann's Chinese theater. And then I find out when I get there that TCL Chinese theater is the same thing. That's the Mann's Chinese theater. I was like, wow, the one with all the footprints and the handprints, the legendary Hollywood spot. I'm like, that's so cool. But I still think at this point it's a critics screening. I'm still thinking, okay, but this is just going to be critics and we're going to be there and we're just going to watch the movie and that's it. No, this is a full-on Hollywood premiere with movie stars, with a black carpet instead of a red carpet. And I'm just kind of like, I could not believe where I was. So I got to walk on the black carpet. Edgar Ramirez from Point Break and other things was right in front of me saying hello to fans. I walked up the black carpet. I took a few photos of the crowd. Somebody in the crowd, if you see my pictures, you know the shirt. I was wearing this like just regular shirt that I wear to work with a tie, shirt and tie. And this guy in the audience yells out, "Your shirt is so square." And I'm like, thank you? I don't know what to say to this. My Uber driver finally told me later that this is actually a good thing and I'm ahead of all the fashion trends, apparently.
Well, Iowa's ahead sometimes. Or Western Illinois, whatever you want to.
So we walk into the theater. I was with a fellow critic, Terry Lee from Detroit. If you listen to the radio in Detroit, you probably know her. She's incredible. And we went into the theater, and I wasn't aware that the stars were going to be doing an introduction. I just assumed Netflix was doing the introduction. But no, in walks Martin Scorsese. And Martin Scorsese is there to introduce the entire cast of The Irishman. The whole cast. Everybody. So you got Pacino, you got Pesci, you got Keitel, you got Ray Romano, De Niro. They're all there. So that's another wow moment. We'll get to the movie in a little bit, but so that goes on. It's a 3.5 hour movie, The Irishman.
That's it?
3.5 hours. So that's cool. Whatever. They started an hour late because we were waiting for the stars to get there. And I got to call out a few of my colleagues. Guys, you can't bitch. We're not allowed to bitch. I don't care how late it started. I don't care about any of the other bullshit. We were flown there. Netflix paid for everything and put us in a room to watch this movie. And they brought all the stars, and Scorsese's there introducing it. We don't get to bitch that it started 45 minutes late. Shut the fuck up. I love you guys. You're my colleagues. No, we don't get to complain about this. So to watch the movie, I go back to my hotel just kind of floating on air, just because I cannot believe the experience I'm having. I for some reason I was up most of the night because I did a little bit of writing. I still haven't published the review yet, but I watch part of why the hell did I watch this? I watched some I Spit on Your Grave 3. I don't know.
3 of them.
There's now 3 of them for some reason. Really horrible, but I'm watching that while I'm writing for some reason. I fall asleep watching Dolomite because I still haven't finished that movie yet. I wake up the next day. I got my free breakfast. Me and Terry from Detroit had breakfast together, and then we went to the press conference. And the press conference is amazing. Again, guys, we cannot bitch that it started late. We're doing it again. Guys are bitching that the thing is starting late. Do you know why it started late? Because they added Martin Scorsese. It was supposed to be just De Niro, but they added Scorsese and they added Pacino. And these people are complaining. Not all of them, just a great
Even if
minority.
it's one, that's the person's going to stick out.
Yeah. we can't complain about this. And people were also complaining we didn't get photographs. The reason we didn't get photographs, personalized, standing there next to them photographs, which are awkward anyway and weird. But anyway, people really wanted those. Maybe I did too. I don't know. But the reason we didn't get them is because at the last minute they added Scorsese and Pacino. And this press conference was going to go long, and they have to be out of there. They're stars. They've got places to be, things to do. Right. And it's already weird and awkward anyway to pose for photos with random strangers. But people were complaining about that. Fine, whatever. I didn't get to ask a question in the press conference. They were drawing numbers to see who got to do that. I'm not complaining again, because during this press conference, Al Pacino tells a story that he says he's never told before. So I'm like, this works for me. I'm fine.
Yeah.
This is great. And I'm 10 feet from the stage. I mean, like the second row of reporters, me. That's where I am. So I've got a direct eye line to De Niro, Pacino, and Scorsese.
We got the pictures on our social media to prove it.
Yeah, it was incredible. So that experience happens, and I'm just I've got a red eye flight, so it's 4:30 in the afternoon, and I've got a flight at 11 o'clock, so I've got nothing to do. And a fellow critic of mine, actually tells me that it's rush hour. You don't want to grab an Uber now to try and go somewhere. You're going to be out there forever. So I'm like, oh gosh, okay. So what do I do? So I go to the bar, and before I go into the bar, I'm sitting out in the lobby of the hotel, the Four Seasons, and Quentin Tarantino walks by. And he goes into the bar, and I'm like, this is Quentin Tarantino. But okay, fine. He's in the bar. I see him. He goes off to the men's room. Whatever. I don't know where he is in the bar, where he's seated or anything. But I go into the bar figuring maybe I can see him come back in and I'll get to see Quentin Tarantino again. Well, I happened to pick the absolute perfect spot in the bar because the table I chose was right in front of the table that Quentin Tarantino was sitting at. And so I watch him. He comes in. He sits down at the table right behind me after saying hi to a couple of critics. And he sits down, and I don't know what to do. I'm just so shocked. So he'd been talking to the other critics, so I say, hello, Mr. Tarantino. My name's Sean. I'm also a critic. He goes, oh, hey, how's it going? And that was it. That's the whole interaction. He was very polite, and I went back to my stuff because I don't like being that guy.
Right.
Now I thought about doing this because I think this would have been the ultimate epic, like, fan thing to do. Like, this would have been the most amazing story to tell later. Netflix had given us all in our hotel rooms a bottle of Jameson, and it's 45% alcohol. This stuff, which means you can't take it on a plane.
Right.
It has to anything under 30% you can take on a plane. Over that, you can't take it on a plane. So, like, what am I going to do with this? I got it into my bag, not knowing what I'm going to do with it. And for a second, I thought almost it would be the ultimate fan thing. On behalf of all your fans, Mr. Tarantino, would you please take this bottle of Jameson? I didn't do it. But instead, I just sat there, and I believe it was his agent who was with him, came in and sat down, and for 90 minutes, I just sat there kind of overhearing this 90-minute conversation of Tarantino just talking passionately about movies of the 70s.
So Sean knows what Quentin's last movie is going to be. He knows everything beginning to end. He's told me about it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so 90 minutes of just sitting there going, oh my God, Tarantino's talking about movies.
Can I ask you a question? Did anybody else talk while he was talking?
No. His agent just nodded and agreed, and she did. It was a conversation, but he was definitely passionate and gesticulating. And
well, he controls a lot of conversation. Yeah. Any interview you ever see him do, Scorsese does it too.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's insane. Yeah, well, I'm sitting like I'm about to go see Kevin Smith. I'm in the theater, and Sean's texting me this. He goes, Tarantino just walked by. Then he sends me a picture of him. Then it's like Antonio Banderas is here now. I'm just sitting there going, I'm in the casino. I think Jason Mewes is behind that curtain over there, which was still cool as hell.
Yeah.
Next to the front row. It's nice. But it was cool to kind of live vicariously through you. And I know Josh was part of the thread. It was a group text from way back when. And Josh was really, it was fun. Everybody I told about it, there's no jealousy. Everybody's just like insanely excited for you that you got to do it. It's just a really cool thing.
And it wasn't completely over yet because I still had to get my Uber. And while I'm out there, Tarantino walked by, got in his car. It's yellow, which is pretty cool. It's a brand new, like 2019,
Oh, it's not the
2020.
Kill Bill
I don't
car.
know. It's beautiful. I don't know what kind of car it was. I'm not a car guy. But while I'm waiting for my Uber, who should happen to walk by me but Pedro Almodovar? So in one day, I sat and listened to Scorsese, I sat and listened to Tarantino, and I just happened to see Pedro Almodovar. It just doesn't. I mean, it just doesn't get better.
And he leaves out the De Niro Pacino we're talking to.
But just in terms of directors,
Right?
though,
No, I know. But yeah, I mean that's a hell of a day. Yeah, I mean I'll be honest. I know I don't want to get in anything personal, but I know you've had health things. I was a little worried and anxiety stuff. So this part of me was like hoping everything went. I was thinking about you the whole time.
That is the weirdest part of it, dude. I was so calm, like
Really?
the whole weekend, the whole day. The weekend, 36 hours. I was there. I was completely calm. I didn't get scared on the plane. I didn't have any anxiety about flying. I watched The Last Jedi. I watched Big Bang Theory. I watched it yesterday.
Spit on Your Grave 3.
I spent a great 3. But like the whole time, and I got to thank Terry Lee, who of course is my colleague. Both of us were attending one of these things for the very first time. And so, as much as you're all grown-ups and we're all members of the same critical association, and I did meet other people and have good conversations, but there's cliquishness. People who know each other and they're going to be in their group and their group stays together. She and I didn't have a group, so we made our own group. And whether she wasn't intending to or not, but I just made me perfectly calm and comfortable, and I've never been that calm and comfortable in a public setting, especially around crowds. And I didn't get scared or nervous one time the entire couple of days.
That's awesome. I just know that when I saw that you were there, I was like, okay, good, he got there. And I also know, I mean, I've done not stuff like to this extent, but I've had things for free. I got to go to concerts and movies and shit. And you get to there, and then you got to start calling around to tour managers and press people
Right.
and I know it can be a headache. So there's, I'm just kind of like, hopefully everything goes good. And I see you're in the hotel. I'm like, all right, cool. He's having good. Then when he got home, I was like, good, he got home. Everything was perfect. So it was exciting to.
There was only one minor hitch, and Netflix fixed it like that. So Netflix paid for everything, and in this moment they took care of it really right away. But for a minute, it looked as if I'd paid $68 out of my own bank account for an Uber ride.
Oh, geez.
From the airport to the hotel, which $68 is a lot of money to me.
Oh, yeah.
So I had a moment there, but I didn't even get scared about that. Like I talked to the Netflix people, and they were like, "No, we got it. You're all right."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. It makes you wonder what why this one? It's cool that they picked the Irishman. If they'll do stuff like this in the future, is it just because it's Scorsese and they're really?
I think the main thing for them is this is the most expensive movie that they've ever been part of, and I think that I think there's a little bit of like trepidation about making people aware of it and making sure that people are looking out for it.
We still got a solid month, don't we, or half a month? Is it going to select cities or something? Is that the issue? Or?
Next weekend it'll be in major markets, but like our Midwest theaters have a strong policy against carrying anything Netflix. They won't do it. They won't put a Netflix movie in there unless Netflix can tell them for sure that 6 months, and we have clearance for 3 months before it ends up on Netflix.
They'll do the Fathom event thing. I wonder if they'll do it. They would have done that already. They'd be selling tickets if it was going to be Fathom event. But yeah, that's still cool. What did you think without going into too much detail?
Oh, is it time to talk about the movie?
Unless you have something else you want to talk about.
I don't. I'm not under an embargo. I thought I would be under an embargo, but no. So, The Irishman. It's about the death of Jimmy Hoffa, about the legendary union boss whose disappearance remains a mystery. And this movie does set out to offer a theory as to why we've never discovered the body of Jimmy Hoffa, and it's a pretty good theory. But I'll leave you to discover that. The story goes that Frank Irish, not his real name, I forgot what his real last name is, but they call him Frank Irish because he's Irish. He's not Italian, but he's interacting with the Irish mob, or with the Italian mob. He makes his name by kind of having a couple of big cuts of meat fall off the back of his truck and into the back of this Italian restaurant operated by mobsters, which impresses eventually Harvey Keitel is one of the lead mobsters. And Joe Pesci, who's one of the under guys, the guys behind the scenes, the guys who are behind the guy, but powerful, but they don't stand out in front of everybody. And he's a really interesting character, and Pesci's the best thing in this movie. He really is. He's acting the hell out of this. Not to knock anybody else, but he just seems to be the one who really has the meatiest thing to work with here. Aside, I know Pacino's got a broad thing to work with Hoffa, but Pesci's got the quieter story here, and he really acts the hell out of it. And I just really enjoyed any time he was on screen. And it was not a typically like Joe Pesci performance. It's not like he's chatterbox anymore. He's not flying all over the place with his energy. He's playing an older man, and he's old, and he's acting old. But the intelligence, that thing he's got going on behind his eyes is fascinating. And that's what makes the performance. He seems so much smarter than everybody else. But the story really does center on Frank, and he's going around, and he makes his name first with the meat, and then with, then he becomes a house painter. And a house painter is a guy who kills people. He paints houses with your brains.
Right.
And, he becomes a hitman, taking out small timers initially, but then Pesci's character gets him in with Jimmy Hoffa, an opportunity for him to become his bodyguard, but also a spy. Because as much as the Italian mob has backed Hoffa to get to where he is, they're concerned about him and his out-of-control ego and his willingness to talk about things. He's very open. And Hoffa is a guy who believed he was a star. He saw himself as almost a movie star type. And Pacino plays that, big and broad and Pacino-like. But Frank Irish is put in place so as his bodyguard, who becomes his friend, but also a guy who's kind of keeping an eye on him and keeping an eye on business at the same time. And eventually, something's going to come down where Frank Irish is going to be involved in the death of Jimmy Hoffa. And that's where the story is headed over 3.5 hours. Now, I'll say this. They should have had a intermission for a theatrical experience like this, because there's a difference between watching a movie on Netflix that you can stop and go and watch at your own pace. 3.5 hours in a movie theater is hard.
Yeah.
And that's why, when you go see Gone with the Wind in a movie theater now on a roadshow basis, there's an intermission. 20 minutes in between for you to get up, move around, get a drink.
We went to Hateful Eight. They had an intermission.
Intermission, yeah. And that's like a 3 hour and 9 minute movie.
Yeah.
So 3 hours and 30 minutes, they should have had an intermission. That would make this movie play a lot better. But I think it'll play better on Netflix, actually, than it will in the theater because of that, for that specific reason. Just the opportunity to shut it off and process and come back to it, it really does have the ability to play like a TV show as much as it does like a movie. Which may hamper it with some critics, may hamper it at awards as well. But then being associated with Netflix may also hamper it with awards. There's a lot of guys out there who are opposed to the idea of what Netflix does. I appreciate this movie a lot. I don't love it because, again, I think theatrically that length is a lot. But also there is the aspect of the technology. The de-aging technology does look a lot like Henry Cavill's mustache. And the hardest part, though, I think what this movie is fighting with that is that we know what a young Robert De Niro looks like. Whether it's 20-year-old Robert De Niro or 40-year-old Robert De Niro, we've seen him from Mean Streets. Yeah. We've seen him from Godfather, too, Mean Streets, all the way back then, even before that, probably, till now. We know what he looked like then, and they can't make him look like that. Right. They don't have that capability. also, he doesn't move around well anymore. So he's supposed to be, and they talked about this in the press conference. I thought it was interesting that Scorsese was very open about. They were all very open about the fact that having to tell Pacino, okay, you're 39 years old, and Pacino's getting up from a chair going. And getting up like a 78-year-old would, bones creaking, and the muscles not doing what you want them to do. And he goes, "No, Al, you're 39 years old." So he's got to muster up the energy to leap out of his chair, and that doesn't happen. And you can see Pacino, you can see De Niro, especially when he's walking, is the younger version of himself. He's walking with a stiffness and an old man's gait, and there's really nothing narratively to explain why that would be. Now, it's the minor thing.
Right.
And I think I liked the fact that they just kind of, hey, is what it is.
Similar to The Last Temptation of Christ, he didn't hide accents. He just kind of, you know what? I'm just going to go for the performance.
Right.
And maybe the guy had a bad back, And so I can kind of appreciate, and even the technology, which I think that'll help with Netflix, is that stuff on a big screen looks a lot shittier than it does. Even on your nice flat screen TVs, it still looks better on the smaller screen than it does the big screen.
I think so. I think that again, is another aspect that could play in their favor. It was funny listening to Scorsese talk about the technology, though. He's like, he did not give a shit about the technology at all. He's like, he hands that over to the CGI people and goes, just do what you do, stay out of my way. Just don't bother me. Just don't bother me. I'm making a movie here. You guys do what you do. He's like talking about the silver ball that they had to set up, and then the silver ball disappears, and it's a thing that's kind of deflecting the light or whatever. And he's like, I don't care about that. Just get out of my way. Get out of my shot. It was great. He couldn't give a shit about that.
And in a way, I mean, this, the Marvel thing that he did clarify some of those comments slightly before you went out there, and he said, he wasn't misquoted, but he used poor words. He meant certain types of cinema are dying off, and he's not wrong. In a way, though, he's trying to. I mean, that silver ball. Those Avenger movies are made in front of a green screen, and that's about it. And so, part of me wishes he could make one of those just to see what that would be like.
Well, I mean, he produced the Joker.
Well, but that wasn't green screen.
I gotta say, I'm happy that no one in my group asked him about that when we did the Q&A during the press conference. No one asked about the Marvel stuff, so that was good.
That's good. Yeah.
A lot of people did make their questions about them and not the people they're asking the questions of, but that's, what are you going to do?
That's what people do, though.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I can't decide if I want to travel out of town and see it, or because part of me is like 3.5 hours. I'm more likely to watch it in the theater in one sitting. Because that is the problem with Netflix. That's something to me that goes against it. Is you can pause it and go get a drink, but you can also, like with both of us in Dolomite, we both started it and haven't finished it. So there's that issue too. And I don't really want to do it with the Scorsese move if I don't have to. So I'm kind of torn on where I should go. But if there's no intermission either. And then you throw in the fact that they were an hour late. So now you've got 4.5 hours, which again, you're not complaining about. No, but that's a long time to be sitting in the movie theater seat, even the nice ones.
Yeah.
So it's a long time to be sitting in your own recliner.
Right.
So, yeah, that's exciting. It's a fun time. So
yeah, it's amazing. I still haven't quite caught up with myself yet.
But overall, a good movie?
I think so. It's good. It's good enough. I like 3.5 hours is holding me back. The technology a little bit, but I like it. I like the way that they kind of dismiss it. Like, guys, just get over it and accept it. you have to understand that these are old men and we had to do it this way.
Yeah, I there's an appreciation there for sure for me for them saying it like that.
Yeah.
And he's always kind of been like that, with certain things. And I like that.
It gave me a new appreciation for this type of press conference, allowing giving a director this level of opportunity to explain why he does what he does You know, it was really interesting.
And that type of cinema is dying. There aren't many directors, unless you're going to go out there and do it for free, that can go out there and actually make the movie they want without being, you know, someone down their back the whole time. Which does make me wonder, at 3.5 hours, if it was more of a studio film, do you think they tighten it up on them, or does it need to be?
I could see a couple of places where they could take a scene, this like especially one of the early de-aging scenes. You could remove it from the movie without really hurting anything. Because
his movies have always been long, not always, but the great epic ones have always been long. But 3.5 hours is like silence long.
We saw how well that played.
Good movie once. But I'm excited about it. I can't wait for it to come out, so that's cool. Anything else before we go to my Iowa City experience?
Give it a chance, and just know that you can shut it off and go back to it anytime you want.
Oh, I'm sure people are going to watch this movie. It's Martin Scorsese, De Niro, Pacino, and Pesci. It's going to do well. Whether it's good or not, that's kind of where we're all going to have to decide.
I think my colleague Terry, she said they should have released it in 3 parts, and that would have been better. In terms of how it played, it played as more of a television event as opposed to a movie event.
Yeah, or 2 movies.
Yeah.
Either way. Interesting though. All right, but when is that? Is it November
20-something?
Yeah, I want to say like the 28th or something like that, but I'm just pulling that number out of my ass. Late 20s, somewhere in the 20th of November.
After Thanksgiving.
Oh, then it's the 20th or 29th. Yeah. Because Thanksgiving is like the Thursday before the end of the month, so can't wait. But while you were there, I was in Iowa City, or not even Iowa City, Riverside, Iowa, or the home of Captain Kirk. Which I didn't know that till Kevin Smith told me. And I'm not that far away. Because we had tickets for this long before Sean was going to go to Hollywood, and he was all apologetic about having to bail on me, and I was like, it's not that hard to find someone to go with me. He's like, I'll pay you back, I promise. My wife was like, I want to go. Oh, easy. It worked out nice. But it was in a casino on a really bad sound system, and I don't know. I can't really say I saw the movie.
Really?
I enjoyed being in the environment, but I definitely missed jokes.
Wow.
So we'll have to get back to that at the end. I suppose we'll we just kind of run through the View Askew universe and get to Jane Silent Bob Reboot, or you want to start with Reboot?
I don't know. How do you want to go? We hadn't really talked about it, so I guess I feel bummed about your experience.
Well, no, it wasn't. It was. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
but it was just the casino.
I did see it. I saw it in a regular theater,
and I wanted to see the Fathom event screening, but my wife kept throwing up roadblocks and made it impossible. And I didn't realize. I mean, it's like I didn't realize it wasn't going to be like a real screen. I mean, the screens were kind of small. There was 3 of them, and it was fine. It was just there was times where, because you're with Kevin Smith fans, so they're screaming and chatting, and Kevin Smith's there watching it with you, which is very cool. But it's very bass heavy, so there was times where I'm sure I missed jokes because people were loud and the sound system wasn't great. But again, you're in this environment where even if the movie was terrible, I don't know if it's good or bad. It was fun because of everybody there enjoyed it, and Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes were there. I did get I missed a lot, like the Ben Affleck scene. I got the gist of it, but I missed certain lines
because people cheered when he came on.
And then it was Jason Mewes' daughter, so there was that too, and it was just a lot that I missed. But let's go ahead and start kind of from the beginning. This is a Kevin Smith episode, more or less. Or at least that was the plan from the get-go, and then Hollywood jumped in, so now it's half Kevin, half Martin. But let's start where it all began. Well, I guess what was the first Kevin Smith movie you saw? Did you start with Clerks, or did you...
Yeah, it was Clerks.
It was Chasing Amy for me, and for the wrong reasons. It was because of the cover. I'm like, this looks good, because it's Joey Lauren Adams, naked backwards, Ben Affleck.
Right.
But then everybody had watched Mallrats, and I just was like, I don't want stupid comedies. I like real movies. So, I was 19, 20 years old.
Right.
So I dismissed Mallrats. I went off to college. Really, I knew of Jay and Silent Bob. My timelines are all jacked up. I remember seeing them in Scream 3. I don't know if I'd seen the movie or not at that point. But he was out promoting Dogma, and he came to my college for free.
Oh, wow.
And I did not go because I didn't know who he was. I knew of Jay and Silent Bob. I didn't go. I remember the big thing. And it was back when he did the Evening with Kevin Smith DVD that came out. That was the tour he did on. And I never went. And then eventually, I don't know, I think it was Dogma, which I didn't get. And then I just kind of went back. And eventually, Clerks, it just clicked. And from then on out, everything was... I just became a fan as soon as everything clicked. But yeah, Clerks, I was
the perfect age for Clerks because I'm a little bit older than you, and I was doing my film school training at the time because I wasn't able to go to film school myself, so I decided to create my own curriculum. I bought college books, college course books, and I watched the movies that were on any list I could find of movies that would inform me about how to watch movies. And it just so happens that this is the point where Pulp Fiction and Miramax is rising, and I'm like, well, that's where I need to be then, is I need to be watching whatever that is. And that's where Clerks comes in, is around that time. And so I went looking specifically to find Clerks because I had to see it based off of all of the things that went with it. And I loved it immediately. Just the first showing of it, just the first time I watched it, it was incredible. I found somebody who spoke the same language as me, who spoke to me in a way that even the greatest filmmakers on the planet didn't speak to me. He did, on a very human level. It's filthy and it's silly, but it felt so real. It felt like my friends. These are the people that I hang out with every day.
Right. I remember that cover, and similar to you, it's like I was trying to get into movies. It's just at that point, I was jumping into the 70s, Cuckoo's Nest, Godfather, Deer Hunter, Exorcist, all those movies, Taxi Driver, all of them. And then there was Pulp Fiction, like the main ones. And I knew, there was the Clerks and those, but I was also 15 or whatever so it was always in the back of my mind. But then, Train Spotting, I'm getting my years mixed up, but they were all out there, and I just kind of moved on to, and whatever else came out when I was getting older, I had to go backwards. So I probably didn't see that till I was probably in college. So you're talking 98, 99, 2000.
Oh, wow.
Was that late? But I worked at Hardee's, and all my friends worked there, so we kind of owned the place. And instantly, I related to this movie. And then to find out, the backstory that goes along with it adds to the movie. The fact that he paid for it on his credit cards, the fact that they shot it at night and then he worked during the day, that he didn't know what he was doing, and then he goes off and does the tour, and they're like, some critic writes something about it looking like surveillance cameras. He's like, yeah, that's what we were going for. It was just all that. I was like, okay, I'm in.
And one of the great things about Kevin Smith, and one of the things that made me just absolutely fall in love with his work, is that he embraced DVD commentary in a way that few other directors did. So
essentially podcasting.
Yeah, and when he did the Clerks commentary is just some of the most incredibly charming stuff ever. Then you back that up with Mallrats, and you're getting the ridiculous story about Mallrats that goes with it. The whole 20-minute opening that he shot and didn't use, and the debacle of working with MTV and all that stuff it's fascinating. And his just raw honesty about the whole thing, just being completely open. He's such a human filmaker. He's not a movie star. He's just so plain spoken with you, and it just sounds like you're talking. Your buddy's telling you a story about this thing he did.
Well, even like the Chasing Amy commentary, he did it for the Laserdisc, and during the commentary it says "fuck DVD," so he has to come out specifically for the audio commentary, he has to come out and be like, so during the audio commentary, I say, fuck DVD. I love DVD. And but he doesn't,
he's in there and he's got Affleck there, and he humanizes him, and he makes him
it is amazing.
A regular guy, and it's
because of those commentaries, Ben Affleck can do no wrong. I mean, the Dogma commentary, as soon as Ben Affleck hits the string, all right, now the movie gets good. And I listened to those commentaries almost as much as I watched the movie.
Yeah,
and it was just, I don't know, it was just fantastic, and that's really what brought me in was the commentaries.
There was a time when I could quote the commentaries as much as the movie.
We have kind of been quoting the commentaries a little bit. But Mallrats, for a lot of my generation at least, is really the movie that kind of made him who he is. It appeared to be a failure at the time, but that found life and then some on DVD and Laserdisc.
Yeah.
What was your experience with Mallrats? Were you into it as instantly, or did you?
I was excited, yeah, because I had the Clerks experience behind me, and so I'm waiting for the next thing. And they started promoting Mallrats on MTV, and Jay and Silent Bob are appearing on TRL or whatever it was at the time, and they're popping up and all over the place on MTV, and it looked hilarious. And then it came out, and it failed almost immediately, and I was bummed for him because I went and saw it immediately and loved it. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. But Jason Lee is such a perfect actor for this movie. He changes what could be a very typical teen comedy into something so completely different. His energy opposites, if you flip those roles, if you put Jason London in the lead role, it doesn't work. But Brody has such a unique energy to him. It makes the movie entirely different. And that's really the key to making that mainstream comedy work, is that energy that he brings to it. Because he's that Kevin Smith character that stands apart from these other characters who could be kind of typical. Like even Jay and Silent Bob almost becomes like Scooby-Doo characters throughout Mallrats,
Well, the main characters that you remember, Randall, Dante, Brody, those are real-life people.
Right.
Walt Flanagan's Brody. Brian Johnson's Randall, Kevin's Dante, and that's why those characters stick out just while they keep reappearing. Holden McNeil's Kevin Smith. He's probably a little bit of the other one too. It's so neat. And then you throw in the fact that you kind of had like a trilogy of slacker movies in that time with like Dazed and Confused, Empire Records, and Mallrats.
Yeah, that
not related at all, but somehow kind of get lumped together. A lot of the same cast between the three movies. I am least familiar with Mallrats. I've seen that the least, just because I missed it again when it came out. But my brother, that was what brought him in.
Well, the funny thing is, you could not really the opening 20 minutes. Have you seen the?
I've seen it. Yeah.
You couldn't release that today.
No,
you couldn't release it then. Actually,
he didn't. And because it was a failure, I mean, it was just like, oh, now everything's done. They went and made Chasing Amy for $800,000. Ben Affleck lived in Kevin Smith's house, our apartment. They all lived in his apartment, I think. Joey, the whole cast did, sleeping on the floor, and arguably made the best movie of his career.
Yeah. It gets at your heart right away, this movie, and everybody's got a story kind of like this, and yet it is its own as well. This movie got a bad rap right away. This was people, and I'm guilty of it too. I think a lot of people, when you're talking about analyzing a movie for its larger meanings or themes, you get into a thing where you can assign something to a movie that doesn't deserve it. The idea that he was making a commentary about all lesbians is just ludicrous. He was talking about this character and this moment and this person. And Joey Lauren Adams is such a singular character, and this is such a singular performance that she makes it a very real human being. and not representative of all gay people. She's this character, and it sucks that people kind of try to label this movie that way, because that's not what this movie is.
No, and I think any guy, really, anybody, it's not just any guy. There's a point in your life where you start, you grow up with your values and what you believe, and then you come into this crossroad where a friend, or it could be any situation where you're just like, well, I don't know if I agree with this, or I don't know how I feel about that. And then you have that struggle of opening your mind or not opening your mind. And this is really a movie about opening your mind and not judging people. And, I don't know. This, along with Dogma, are probably two movies singularly responsible for, kind of helping me, not be the. I mean, I wasn't never a Jesus freak, but I grew up Catholic, so there was part of me that, didn't want to listen to heavy metal, believe it or not, and it was against all that stuff. And this is, I had a girlfriend who had a boyfriend before me, so it was just something different. Now you have to. Oh, she's been touched. The stuff that you have to. And this movie really does a great job of making this character, Holden McNeil, go through his journey, and then and he's wrong the whole time.
Yeah.
Even into the end. And it's so real, and it's just kind of like, okay. And then you can look back at it and go, okay, I know, it really helps you open your mind. And even in future movies where he pops in, they do a good job of sequeling it in other movies. But I really love this movie. I don't watch it as much as I should.
There's a fearlessness to Affleck's performance, and that it feels so raw and so real. The ways in which his mind is flying all over the place, and the decisions that he makes are so of the moment, and just egotistical and ugly at times, rude, thoughtless.
And we've all done it.
Yeah,
we've all done
it. But also extraordinarily human and able to understand it. You can see why he went to where he went, and he's not evil. He's just wrong.
But it's also easy for that slacker crowd who got into the Dazed and Confused, Empire Records, Mallrats, that would watch that and go, well, no one would ever say that or act like that. Bullshit, we all have. How many times have you said something you regretted saying?
Yeah.
Everybody's done that. So it really is a perfect movie. And I mean, Tarantino called it the best movie of that year.
Huh.
And I think that's where obviously Clerks and Pulp Fiction kind of came out at the same time.
Right.
But yeah, that was. I just think that's what brought Chris Rock into the View Askew family. Was he thought Chasing Amy? He said Annie Hall was the romantic comedy that everyone would be copied until Chasing Amy, and then it was the first original romantic comedy since Annie Hall.
And don't forget that Chasing Amy is extremely funny.
Yeah,
it is very funny. That scene, the scene where they're in the bar comparing their sex scars is just so funny, over the top, hilarious.
Yeah. And then, he's got the story on the commentary track where people walk up to him and goes, oh, that Lethal Weapon 3 scene. Yeah.
But then you get the secondary characters too. There's so much depth in those wonderful secondary characters. And I'm sorry, I've misremembered the guy's name. He plays the gay character in the movie, and the other gay character in the movie. But that scene of the Comic-Con early on is so funny. He pulls out the gun and yells "Black Rage!" I lost it. It's so great.
I still don't get the
Rage.
joke. I still don't get the joke. What's a
Bitch,
newbie
you
in?
almost made me laugh.
Right. Yeah, it's even the stuff that doesn't age well. You can place it in that time and understand characters like the Jason Lee character, because we all knew those guys back then, and so it still works. I don't know. It really is a great movie. If you haven't seen Chasing Amy, go see it. Dogma. Being a former Catholic, this is why this movie is so perfect for me. It's not offensive whatsoever, even though Catholics seem to think it is. But he manages to walk that line of, I believe there is a God, and and still make a funny movie that makes you think.
Irreverent, but hilarious, challenging, but thoughtful and caring, critical, but also loving. Buddy Christ is such an icon. I love Buddy Christ.
George Carlin and Chris Rock. George Carlin, Chris Rock, and Jason Mewes carry it, and Alan Rickman.
Yeah,
they make this movie. And then
giving Jay an emotional arc in this movie was that was a choice.
It's the first time Jay really was a star of the movie, and then really, I was going to say those four, but then Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, their stuff's amazing, and it's.
The conflict between the two of them becomes so real, and as funny as they are, and seemingly funny, that when it gets dramatic at the end, when they're confronting each other, it's emotional, and you buy into it. And that look on Affleck's face at the end when he decides to kill his friend is it's power. There's a power to that. The eyes are wet. He's acted the hell out of that.
Yeah, I love that movie. And then you throw on the commentary track again, and while they're filming that, they're winning the Oscar for Best Writers, and Kevin Smith's telling them not to ad-lib. So it was, I don't know, there are a few bigger laughs than just Matt Damon doing Run DMC. That's great. That's great. That was so good. Well, even Chris Rock joining Jay and Silent Bob on the trip is, I don't know, it's just, and then Alan Reyes.
The dignity of Alan Rickman,
yeah, he's it's perfectly cast.
Yeah, even Linda Fiorentino, who people kind of criticize a little bit more than everybody else.
And I think they criticize her because in the commentary track, Kevin Smith said she was difficult to work with, but she is the lead of this movie.
Right.
And you bringing all these actors in and out.
She is a little bit out of place just because she doesn't seem to be on everybody else's wavelength. But I think that's the outsider status that she was carrying coming in.
And she didn't get to go home, but Ben Affleck can come in for 5 days and go home. And she wasn't allowed to do that, and I think they had issues. But regardless, I really love this movie. And then it goes right into Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Not really a movie. It's probably the biggest cult movie of all time. You have to know these other four movies to truly get this movie.
Right.
But it just works. Everybody's in it.
Yeah, so Jay and Silent Bob in this movie universe, they've got a comic book that was based off of them that was written by Holden and Banky from Chasing Amy, and it's now being made into a movie, and they're going to Hollywood to try and stop it from being made.
And you really have to see the other movies to get everything.
There's a lot of inside jokes from the previous movies. There's a lot of inside Hollywood stuff.
Jason Lee popping up as two different characters, and even Ben Affleck is two different characters. He frosts his tips and to be different. Jason Lee puts a hat on. And
a beard.
But you can see why people would be confused. But it's so quotable. Probably the most quotable movie he has. Just a ton of fun, and I can watch this movie every day for the rest of my life and be happy.
I watched it today.
I've watched pieces of it over the last month, nonstop because it's on Netflix. And then we thought he was done with the VSQ universe, and he goes to Clerks 2, which, while I like it, it's kind of where it starts to, you can see they start taking money away from him. That's why I started to notice. Like Dogma and Jay and Silent Bob, he had real budgets, and even Mallrats, you can start to see the budget fall with Clerks 2. But it didn't matter. He found a way to make it equally as funny as everything else he did.
And the thing about it is the performance of Brian O'Halloran and Anderson. What's Anderson?
Yeah, Jeff Anderson.
Jeff Anderson. Their chemistry has never gone away. They still work off of each other brilliantly the same way they did on Clerks.
Well, then you throw Rosario Dawson in there, and she fits.
Yeah, her energy is absolutely perfect.
She's like a A-list sexy celebrity, a sex symbol of a actress, and she totally, you buy that she would fall for Dante. and she pulls that off perfectly. It's just, and even the little, I can't remember his name with the pillow pants and all that, but so he makes it fun. As stupid as you could. I mean, I suppose that'd be the thing you could criticize, but I enjoyed every second of him being in it.
I even enjoyed the dance break, the musical bit worked for me. I bought in. I did. I enjoyed that. It was out of place, but it worked in the it's completely out of context, but it works.
And then this isn't really in the View Askew verse, but he kind of brings it in. Zack and Miri make a porno. The scene with Justin Long, and they brought that character back for Jan Silent Bob Reboot. I forgot his name already. Randy St. Randy. The movie the first failure that Seth Rogen ever had. Again, another movie that didn't do well. That I don't know if it ever did pick up life, but it was released on Halloween the week before Role Models came out.
Weird
made
choices.
No sense.
Yeah,
just kind of bullshit. I think he could have. There's no reason this wasn't another Seth Rogen hit. I don't know.
I loved it. I watched this today as well. Yeah. I had found some time and watched it today, and it's outrageous. Yeah, there's just so many wonderful little moments and side characters, and the chemistry between Elizabeth Banks and Seth Rogen is really genuinely romantic, and there's a lot of wonderful history that they build without actually talking about their history. They do talk about it, but I mean, you can sense more of it between them in what they don't say than what they do say, and that's really great. That's a great piece of writing.
In a lot of ways.
And acting.
In a lot of ways, I think this is halfway responsible for why she's such a star now. Because she's always had that small part, but now she's a director. She's really kind of coming to her own, and she really steals this movie. Her and Seth Rogen's chemistry, like you said.
There's a wonderful tension to that scene where they have sex for their porno movie in front of their other friends. That scene is really is weirdly romantic and sexy and strange and funny all at one time. There's all this energy happening in the scene when you cut away to Craig Robinson and you've got Tracy Lawrence and Jay.
And Katie Morgan. And I really think having Jay and Katie Morgan's over-the-top sex really, it adds to that, that romanticism that is in their sex scene. It's really, and then watching him watch it at the end. I mean, they're just, Kevin Smith's always been based in reality. And, he's got these certain emotions that he's shooting for in every movie. And without exception, I think whether the movie's good or not, he finds that emotion and he's at least successful getting that out. We can just kind of move on to Reboot now. There are other movies, Tusk, Yoga Hosers, Jersey Girl, Cop Out. I like all of them, but let's just move on to Jay and Silent Bob Reboot because I'm curious what your opinion is.
Jay and Silent Bob Reboot curses them going to Hollywood to try and stop a reboot of Blunt Man and Chronic. I don't love this one as much as I loved everything else that he's done. There's a bit of and I get we're all getting a little bit older, so everything's kind of slowing down a little bit. And there's an element to this that is a little bit just off of his usual pace. And when you're so used to the pace of Jay and Silent Bob being so quick, to see it slowed down like this is a little bit not jarring, but just that slight bit off for me. I laughed plenty, and it's plenty funny enough, and I would recommend it. It just it is complete fan service. Yeah, but he's not trying it to not be anything but. So I'm okay with the fan there's
service.
more to this. There's more to this than say Zombieland Double Tap, where I thought they just repeated a lot of jokes from the first movie or dunked on easy targets. There's not a laziness to this. There's a lot of really fun targets in this movie of really. Oh yeah, and there's a story there. They bring in his daughter, and Jay has a daughter with Elizabeth. What's her name?
Oh my god,
I can't remember. From the first
Boo Boo Kitty Fuck.
Yeah. They've got a daughter together that he didn't know about.
Shannon
Elizabeth, thank you. And so she's going to go with them to Hollywood They brought in some other elements that really do work, and I really do appreciate. But there is just something just a little bit off.
Well, it's similar to the way you're describing the Scorsese thing, where there's you look at the de-aging and you're like, well, I don't know, and they're old and they're in their 30s. It doesn't. There's a lot of that here, not necessarily the CGI, but just like, okay, so Chasing Amy exists in this Dogma. These movies exist in this universe. What's going on here?
Yeah, because Kevin Smith plays himself at a certain point.
And it doesn't really matter, but at the same time, it does affect the story. The story really, there is a story, but it's more you will get lost. I mean, it's just, if you really want to sit and look at that doesn't matter, and he doesn't care, and I'm okay with him not caring. I do think the emotional scenes work, though. I think the Jay being a father, I really bought into that. I thought him and Harley Quinn had a good chemistry, and it did tug at your heartstrings a little bit. And while I missed some of the Holden McNeil stuff, I was still able to get the gist of it. I think, if anything, I just missed jokes. I got the meat and potatoes of it.
I mean, it's basically the same scene from the first movie, but just reimagined for what today is.
Well, he did the scene from the first movie with Banky or Brody, where they. But from when Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, it's the same scene from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back in this one. Well, no, in Strike Back he did that scene. The scene they do with Holden McNeil in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, they do with Brody, where he's telling him to go to Hollywood, and he's like, "What the f is?" I don't even remember what he's questioned in this one. With Holden McNeil, he brought out his daughter, and this basically a sequel to Chasing Amy. That was. I don't know. I thought it worked, and he added that. It wasn't in the script.
Yeah,
he added that just because Ben Affleck said he could do it, and brought in Joy Lauren Adams. And from what I got out of it, I enjoyed the scene, and I really liked I don't know. I really thought he did a good job of capturing that Jason Mewes is a good father, and that's kind of what he was trying to go for. And you could see him. Granted, I was in an audience full of Kevin Smith fans, so you could see the tears and the biting of lips for that kind of stuff. It seemed like he accomplished that pretty well. When Silent Bob talks, it's fun, I guess. He did come out and goes, because Kevin Smith gave an intro to the movie. He goes, "No, I cut a scene that I'm starting to regret cutting, but just I want to say this." Silent Bob's favorite movie is Glengarry Glen Ross. I'm just going to leave that out there. And it may come back up, it may not. I cut that scene where we established that, so it might matter, it might not. And then enjoy the movie. And so Silent Bob talks a lot in this movie. But, I mean, it's similar to Tusk and Yoga Hosers and Clerk. Really anything aside from Zack and Miri, and I guess even Cop Out, it seems like he's gotten less and less money, and you can really see that. And then with the money he did spend, Pearl Jam's in this. They play Daughter. So that's probably not a cheap song to get.
Yeah.
And, Clerks 2 had a Smashing Pumpkins song. And so he's putting money in places that matter. And because of that, I don't know. I think a lack of money does affect it being at the Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back level.
Yeah. I think Jersey Girl plays a lot into that, too, about him getting money taken away from him, because there was a lot of pressure on that movie, and it was not fair what happened to that movie at all.
No, they had similar to Mallrats, for different reasons. They had to cut the first 20 minutes out of that one, too, because they didn't want Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck on the screen together anymore.
Yeah.
Jersey Girl is a movie I love that it's not fair that one didn't.
Because that young girl is just wonderful in that film. And her chemistry with Affleck and even with George Carlin is
George Carlin's
beautiful.
Amazing in that movie.
He deserved an Academy Award nomination for that. He did. He's that good.
And Liv Tyler and Ben Affleck kind of said, "Hey, we can do things other than Armageddon and do it well." No, and from what I don't know if it's news or not, but he admitted Clerks 3 is happening. Clerks 3, Randall has a heart attack, decides that the original Clerks 3 he wrote was really bleak, and he's been doing readings of that. He's rewritten it completely. Randall has a heart attack and decides to make Clerks. So, I mean, he really doesn't give a shit anymore.
So Jeff Anderson's going to do it?
The reason that Jeff didn't do it, he did a Q&A and he told us why. The reason was because when Kevin makes movies, he's working with Hollywood people that want to make movies with him. So they don't even think about money. Well, they were moving forward with Clerks 3, and Jeff said, well, what are you paying me? No offense, but can't go to another movie and get paid a lot of money, and I have a day job. I can't just quit that and go do this movie.
Right.
You got to make it worth my while, and that's where it fell apart. And it wasn't Jeff Anderson's fault. It wasn't him being a dick about it. It was, he really went out of it, and just something he never thought of because he was always moving forward. So that's why Clerks 3 didn't happen. But they met at a con recently, and he rewrote it, and basically he goes, the snake's really eating its tail now. But on top of that, Mallrats 2 is now happening. Universal was so happy with Jay and Silent Bob Reboot that they've greenlit Mallrats 2.
Wow. So,
yeah. Clerks 3, Mallrats 2, which then pushes Moose Jaws. That was one of the questions. What's going on with Moose Jaws? It's now further down the line. He's hoping when Harley and Johnny Depp's daughter turn about 25, 26, they can do Moose Jaws then, which will then finish his Canadian trilogy. He's just having fun, and you definitely can see that in this movie. And really, the last few movies, you can tell the fun's there. And he's great at capturing that. So I don't know. I'd recommend it to a Kevin Smith fan.
Yeah.
But that's really all I would recommend his movies.
I enjoyed it enough in the moment. I don't really. It's been a couple of weeks now, and I'm not holding on to the memory of it very well.
I feel like I'll go back when it hits a streaming service because there are funny things in it. I thought Chris Hemsworth was funny. I know he's done that character a lot, but in this movie it works better. And I don't know. I feel like the more we talk about it, the more things that didn't necessarily work the first time, it seems funny again. So I'm sure I'll watch it again. I'm a Kevin Smith fan, so it was cool to see him in Iowa City and not at the premiere of The Irishman. Anything else before we wrap it up for this week?
No, not really. Not looking forward to Terminator. That's about it.
Yeah, next week, Terminator comes out.
Why? We don't know, but
Zack, hopefully, Cove Mega will be back joining us. I think that's the plan.
Yes.
So, yeah, that to look forward to, and that'll be more of a typical episode. We may or may not, depending on what Sean sees, bring up some other movies. We will talk about Dolomite. We'll talk about Terminator. Depending on how Trainwreck Arctic Dogs is. We'll talk about that. Current War, Harriet, Motherless Brooklyn, all movies that we may or may not talk about depending on how much they matter. And then there's a whole shit ton of 89 movies that between the 2 weeks that we haven't seen. I don't think many of them are big successes, so we'll see. I don't have those in front of me. And we'll have to add the classic. I think Zach's going to pick it for us. He hasn't yet, has he?
No, I got to talk to him about that.
So we'll get that on social media. So check out our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages to see what movies we'll be talking about this week. And then ihatecritics.net/Patreon to be a Patreon supporter. Anything else before we end the show?
There were no 89 movies this week, so.
Right. So, do you want to do a flick chart or do you want to get out of here? It's getting late. It's up to you.
Yeah, I don't care. I got nothing to do.
All right. Let me see if my internet's working. Chart.com. Sign in. The Amazing Spider-Man 2012 Reign of Fire.
Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, I'll go with
I didn't
that.
hate it, you know.
From Dusk Till Dawn, Star Trek Generations.
Boy, I don't really like either of those movies either. Generations.
I'll go From Dusk Till Dawn just for the Tarantino connection.
You my best friend, Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah. You should have asked me when to be on the podcast. Insomnia, The Passion of the Christ.
Insomnia. It's a really good movie.
Yeah. 1 Hour Photo, The Breakup.
1 Hour Photo.
Agreed. 9, Scream 3.
Ooh, 9, I guess, because Scream 3 is terrible.
Yeah.
9 is the animated movie, right? Yeah.
Right. Kung Fu Hustle, From Hell.
From Hell. I love From Hell.
American Graffiti, Old School.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Because I appreciate American Graffiti a lot, but if you told me I had to watch one or the other, but I would choose Old School.
I would too. I think it's just due to my age.
Yeah.
Speaking, I mean, we never talked about it, but Todd Phillips, when he said he can't make comedies anymore, I mean, what did you think of that? Part of me hates the fact that something somebody says in an interview just turns into a headline. But, I mean, we never really addressed it. Did you really care one way or the other?
I take the Dave Anthony approach to this type of thing. I think it's whining. I think Dave Anthony was basically saying that he can do comedy right now and he's just fine. It's not an issue. Whereas other guys are whining about the things they can't say.
And that, what I don't think, like Mark Maron did he said, just if you're not punching down, you can do whatever you want. You can still be edgy. It's the punching down that's an issue.
Yeah.
And
when you go after trans people or, gay people, or you're punching down. You are. Those are people who are trying to rise up and pull themselves up out of horrendous things that have been done to them for years. And when you're throwing punches their direction, you're the problem.
Right. And I don't think I think his movies hold up just fine. Like I watched Hangover fairly recently, and there's that scene where Bradley Cooper yells out "Doctor F word." To me, that's not punching down at gay people. That's making fun of the character. That's saying how it's it's showing you the character of that guy, Bradley Cooper's character. And those things can still happen if that means that much to you, or you could just pick a different word. It doesn't really,
Yeah.
I think you're just seeing people being more careful when they say stuff. It's like, I don't want to be a dick. You can be funny without being a dick. And that's really all it is. And I just think you say something in passing in an interview and it turns into a headline. That's not fair either. The Wolf of Wall Street, Mars Attacks.
Oh, kill me. God, I guess I hate Mars Attacks enough that even Wolf of Wall Street is just a movie I don't like. I think it's a better made movie.
Yeah, the problem I have with Wolf of Wall Street is that it's so
Bleak.
well made. Well, it's so... Everything he did was perfect.
Yeah.
It's just, he pissed me off.
Yeah.
And he wasn't trying to. He was really giving that guy a shot. And
in professional wrestling parlance, it's called go away heat. There's heat that's where you're getting the audience angry with you in a way that you're supposed to, and then there's go away heat where people are just fed up with how bad you are at what you're doing.
Yeah, like Scorsese has always been good at giving every character a fair chance.
This is not a character who deserved that fair chance. No.
And he, Henry Hill had to change his name. There's things that he didn't necessarily deserve it either, but something happened there that it worked. We'll talk about that in 1990 or in next year. But with this one, the guy's successful still. He should be in jail for the rest of his life, as far as I'm concerned. The Good Lie, 2014. I have no idea what that is. Minority Report.
Minority Report.
I just assume so. Movie I need to see again. Wow. Journey to the Mysterious Island. Swordfish. This is where we can...
Movie I don't remember versus movie I remember for the wrong reason. Swordfish.
I agree. Little Shop of Horrors, Bowfinger.
Bowfinger.
Yep. Let's see here. Saving Your Choice. Every now and then it slows down on me.
Yeah.
Our favorite still is Almost Famous on this, even though Pulp Fiction is our our favorite.
Yeah.
Blue Thunder Major League. I don't know what Blue Thunder is, 1983.
Oh, it's that helicopter movie with Roy Scheider. It's no Major League, though.
Yeah. Zombieland Behind Enemy Lines.
Zombieland.
Agreed. Superman 1978, Maverick 1994.
Maverick.
Yeah. I like Mel Gibson, sorry.
I've retroactively come to dislike the Superman movies. Not Chris Reeves so much, but just the movies themselves they're much more silly now.
Yeah, and then you throw in all the behind the scenes stuff, the whole Marlon Brando garbage, and you know, like how it worked for Kevin Smith movies. It really tears apart Richard Donner.
There's a series on YouTube, Movie Nights, and a critic named Alison Pregler. She's much younger than us, and she did a series of Superman reviews. And when you listen to her, somebody who has no loyalty to this Superman series whatsoever, no nostalgia about it, she takes it apart in a way that makes you feel silly for liking it.
Octopussy, Unbreakable.
Unbreakable.
Yep. The Parent Trap, 1998, Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. Dogma, Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas,
Dogma.
2000. Rosemary's Baby, Any Given Sunday.
Rosemary's Baby.
Agreed. Wanda, Nevada.
Never heard of it.
Peter Fonda. And looks interesting.
That's the classic next week.
Number One with a Bullet. You know that one?
No.
Huh. Caddyshack, Crocodile Dundee.
Caddyshack.
Agree. The Shawshank Redemption, From Russia with Love.
Shawshank, I guess.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with Shawshank. I just think people need to shut up.
The fan. I hate the Shawshank fans more than I hate the movie. I'm kidding, Shawshank fans.
I'm not. It's nothing. Nothing is more middle of the road than the Shawshank Redemption.
No, it's so true. It's country music.
Right. It's you too. 101 Dalmatians, The Fox and the Hound.
Fox and the Hound.
Hollywood Ending, Rocky 3. I don't know Hollywood Ending.
It's Woody Allen. So yeah, I like that movie.
We'll just flip forward. Nah, that's not fair. I can't do that. We'll refresh it.
Yeah.
Evil Dead 2, The Matrix.
Evil Dead 2.
Easy choice for me. Waitress, obviously, or Face Off.
Waitress.
13 Going on 30, The Crow.
Ooh. Both very good movies. I really love 13 Going on 30, but I got to pick The Crow. I think it's a better overall artistic effort. Whereas 13 Going on 30 is just a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'll go with that. Scorpion King, The Incredibles.
Incredibles.
The Cassandra Crossing, 1977.
Never heard of it.
Stars and Bars, 1988.
Never heard of it.
Oh, Flickshot's really having fun with us today. Clash of the Titans, 1981, or Beethoven, 1992.
Clash of the Titans.
For the title alone.
Just because it's so silly.
National Security, Broken Arrow.
Broken Arrow because it's so silly.
The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, 28 Days Later.
28 Days Later.
Yeah.
I don't think Benjamin Button's a bad movie at all.
I'm just never going to watch it. It's kind of like Silence. I just don't want to watch it. I think Fincher's the best there is, but it's just not for me. Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life, Reign of Fire.
Reign of Fire.
Sure, why not? Death Proof, Free Willy.
Death Proof.
Boogie Nights, Breakfast at Tiffany's.
It's Boogie Nights by a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can call me politically correct all you want. That was racist then. It's racist now. It's just as racist then as it is now.
Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, Brokeback Mountain.
It's Brokeback Mountain for me.
Yeah, I haven't seen Hellboy
Honestly,
2, but
I'm going to make it my mission in life to make the Breakfast at Tiffany's fans feel bad. That's my goal now. You guys should feel bad for liking that.
see, I try not to do that. I mean, I understand why.
I understand maybe why you liked it in 1962, but holding on to it now, nope.
I just like to point it out and just like do with this what you want. If you just want to ignore it, okay. But here.
Outside of like the jazz singer, I'm not sure I've seen anything that racist in a movie.
Chasing Amy, Enter the Dragon.
Chasing Amy. I didn't need to think about that.
Yeah. Black Klansman, How to Train Your Dragon.
Black Klansman.
Master and Commander, To Die For.
Huh. That's interesting.
It's To Die For me.
Yeah. I love Master and Commander, though.
I like it.
I'm just not a big fan of those kinds of movies.
No, and the rewatchability. Not that I go and watch To Die For every other day either, but I'll never watch Master and Commander again. Avengers: Age of Ultron, End of Days.
Avengers.
Sure. Wasn't really a fan of either. The Hurt Locker, In the Line of Fire.
Hurt Locker.
Yeah. The Golden Compass, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
Josh's choice.